All right, so this is a lesson on area of circles. So the area of a circle, and so we've talked about a parallelogram, a rectangle, a square, a triangle, and a trapezoid. Now area of a circle. And again, I like to use a subscript. And so when you think about the area of a circle, you just have to think about pi, right? And when you see a circle, you should think of a pi. Pies are circular, and pies are what? Pies are square. No, pies are round, but pi r squared is the formula, right? Pi times the radius squared. Pretty simplistic, pretty easy formula. Area of a circle, you shouldn't have any problem with it. Pi r squared. All right, so scenario like this. Remember, we often use 3.14 for our pi, right? So what do we use for pi? 3.14. If your teacher wants you to use your pi button on your calculator, use your pi button on your calculator. I'm going to use 3.14 because a lot of texts want you to use 3.14. But again, if your teacher wants you to use that pi button, you should use your pi button. That would be actually a little bit more accurate answer. So 3.14 used for pi. All right, don't forget about circumference as well. Sometimes they're going to give you the circumference instead of the radius, or sometimes they'll give you the diameter instead of the radius, and we have to remember the relationship. So remember, circumference equals, or I'm sorry, the diameter is twice the radius. All right, so we got to remember that relationship. And then we have to remember that the circumference could be what? 2 pi d, excuse me, pi times the diameter, or the circumference could be, what's the other formula? 2 pi r. And we've already had these formulas earlier in the course, right? But if not, refresh your memory. Remember, twice the radius is the diameter, or the radius is half the diameter, right? Circumference is pi d, or 2 pi r. All right, with those formulas, you'll be able to figure out area of a circle without much of a hitch. All right, so let's take a look at our first situation here. Let me move this up a little bit higher so we get a little bit more room to work. Let's keep the formula. So find the area. We're given a circle. Find the area. How do you start? Like always, you got to start with your area formula, right? Okay, so the area of our circle is going to be pi r squared, and now it's just a factor. Oh, my board keeps jumping on me. I'm sorry about that. So the area of this circle is going to be pi. Again, I'm going to use 3.14 times my radius, and again, I always include my units, squared. All right, order of operations. Got to do the exponent first, and that's, of course, 16 meters squared. Calculator, 3.14, or your pi button, times 16, and I got 50.24 meters squared. All right, if your teacher wants you to round off to one decimal place, then 50.2. Don't forget your units. Those are meters squared. All right, second situation. All right, so what would you do with this? Well, again, you're always going to start with your formula, right? Area of a circle equals pi r squared. Your first thought should be, I don't know the radius. But yeah, you do, right? If the diameter is 15, what's the radius? 7.5. Okay, from there it's a piece of cake. 3.14, or your pi button, times 7.5 squared. All right, we can do all this right in our calculator. 7.5 squared, and then multiply it times 3.14. So 7.5 squared is 56.25 times 3.14, and I got 176.625. And again, if your teacher wants you to round off to 1 or 2 decimal places, then follow their lead. Remember, this isn't actually an exact answer anyhow, because it's a round off on pi. Now, what are the units? Remember, we're doing area, always square units, so we're going to do a u squared, right, for our square units. Okay? All right, let's look at another situation here. Something very near and dear, not to my heart, to my stomach. All right, how about a pizza example? Yeah, everybody loves pizza. All right, so what do we got? We got, let's find the area of a medium and a large pizza. Now, area corresponds to how much pizza you get to eat. The more area, the more pizza. What's the better deal, a 16-inch medium or an 18-inch large? Well, let's find the area. Start with a formula. All right, area of the medium, pi r squared. All right, let's go ahead and run the formula here, pi r squared. So 3.14. And again, we're given a diameter, right? A 16-inch pizza definitely doesn't have a 16-inch diameter. It's an 8-inch radius, right? So 8 inches squared. All right, so punch this in our calculator. So basically 64 times 3.14. And I got 200.96 square inches. So just about 201 square inches in my medium pizza. All right, let's run the large. So same situation, start with your formula. Pi 3.14, radius now is 9 inches squared. Calculator, 81 times 3.14. Punch it out, 254.34 square inches. Okay, so it's 53 square inches more. Okay, it's 25% more than the medium. You get 25% more pizza than the medium. So it's like a medium and a quarter. So it's like a medium and 2 more slices. It might help you next time you're buying, should I get the medium? Should I get the large? Well, it depends, right? Depends on the price. Okay, let's go ahead and use the formula now to, instead of finding the area, what if we're asked to find the radius? Well, not a problem, right? Not a problem. Find the radius of a circle if the area is 78.5 meters squared. So they've given us the area. We now have to find the radius. Not a problem. Choose the formula. Area of a circle, pi r squared. Substitution, right? So 78.5 meters squared area equals pi. Again, I'm going to use 3.14. If your teacher wants you to use your pi button, use your pi button. Okay, we've done equations before with the variable squared. And remember, first thing we want to do is isolate the squared variable. So we've got to move this 314. So I'm going to divide both sides by 3.14. Now, it's best if we do as much calculating in our calculator at one time without rounding off, because the more we round off, the farther away we're going to get from the actual answer. Okay? So technically the best way is to do everything in your calculator. So let me show you what I'm talking about. Now this one works out fine because the answer is going to be 25. But here's the best way to do the problem. It's best now, take the square root of the right, take the square root of the left. Now, by the way, we're not using the plus minus. Do you know why? Well, the reason is, can you have minus a radius? You can't, right? You can't have a minus, right? It'd be a black hole. So we just disregard the minus part of the plus. Minus, only worry about the plus. So the best thing is to do it all in your calculator. Therefore, then, you don't round off a round off. It just keeps you closer to the answer. Again, we're using 3.14 for pi anyhow. All right, so anyhow, when you punch that out, you get the square root of 25, which is 5. And what's our unit? Well, remember, the square root of meters squared is meters. And what was our radius? 5 meters. The radius of that circle was 5 meters. Okay, how about this problem? Find the area of the shaded areas. What in the world? Well, I've got really 2 shapes, right? And they together make up the shaded area. I've got a triangle. Isn't that clear? Got a triangle. And I've got what? How much of a circle? Half of a circle, right? I've got a semicircle. So start off with a formula, right? What's your total area going to equal? Area of a triangle plus 1/2 the area of a circle, right? A semicircle. just do half its area. Okay, let's get specific. Do you remember the formula for area of a triangle? Hope you do. It's 1/2 base times height. And again, plus the 1/2, and what's the area of a circle? Pi r squared. All right, now we're ready to run the problem. So, area, my 1/2 is 1/2. Now, what's the base of the triangle? Well, it's going to be this value right here. And they don't give it to us, do they? Or do they? Huh. Do they or do they? I like that. Do you like that? Okay, so watch. 8 centimeters. 8 centimeters. 8 centimeters. How much is that? 8 centimeters. How much is that? 8 centimeters. Did they give us the base? They really did. It's 16 centimeters. What's the height of the triangle? Where's the perpendicular distance from that base to the opposite vertex? Right there. That's the 10 centimeters. Is it not? It is. All right. Plus 1/2 pi, 3.14, times our radius squared. What's the radius of our circle? 8 centimeters squared. All right. Let's do some simplifying. Half of 16 is 8. 8 times 10 is 80. So we get 80 centimeters squared for the front part. The back part, I'm going to leave the 1/2 times the 3.14. And then that's going to be times 64 centimeters squared. Let's punch that out in our calculator. All right. So easiest way, let's do 1/2 of 64 is 32, right? Commutative property, we can change our order. So 32 times 3.14. If you don't want to do it that way, do the pi times the 64 and divide by 2. All right. So I get 100.48, and that is centimeters squared. Let's add it up. 180.48 centimeters squared. 100.48 centimeters squared. All right, take a moment and answer this last question here for me, if you would. Explain in your own words how to find the area of odd shapes like the one above. So again, just generally give a generalization, write it down. Hey, remember, thinking about it, thinking how you're going to articulate it and writing it will help you to remember it, and hopefully, I hope, for the rest of your life, right? So take a moment and go ahead and write that down. And that's our lesson. Area of a circle, pi r squared. Well, they're really round, but the formula is pi r squared.